Dr. Rukia Patel stared at the genetic sequencing results on her holographic display, her dark eyes reflecting the strange patterns that shouldn't exist in any human DNA. She'd run the test 3 times now, each iteration confirming what seemed impossible. Her patient's genetic structure contained elements that defied current scientific understanding. "Run it again," she whispered to her lab's AI system. "Cross-reference with every known genetic variation in the database." The young woman whose DNA had sparked this mystery, Thalia Bennett, had come to the Norton Institute of Genetic Medicine for what should have been routine genetic counseling. At 25, she'd simply wanted to know if she carried any hereditary health risks before starting a family with her partner. Instead, she'd unknowingly initiated a discovery that would reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. The lab's quantum computers hummed as they processed the data. Rukia's fingers drummed against her desk, a nervous habit she'd never quite shaken despite 15 years in genetic research. The sequence contained gene expressions she'd never seen before, structures that seemed to fold in impossible ways, creating patterns that almost appeared to pulse with their own energy. Analysis complete, the AI announced. No matches found in any known human genetic database. Detected structural similarities to theoretical models of self-repairing DNA proposed by Dr. Nassim Patel in 2023. Rukia's heart skipped a beat at the mention of her father's work. Before his disappearance 10 years ago, he'd been considered either a visionary or a madman for his theories about engineered evolutionary potential hidden within human DNA. Now, looking at Thalia's results, Rukia wondered if he'd been right all along. She pulled up Thalia's family history. Both parents deceased in a car accident when she was young, raised by her aunt in suburban Portland. Nothing remarkable except there was a gap. The first 2 years of Thalia's life had no medical records, no documentation beyond a birth certificate that, looking at it now, showed subtle signs of fabrication. The secure comm on Rukia's desk chimed. "Dr. Patel." It was Dr. Jin Zhao, head of the Institute's Ethics Committee. "We've detected unauthorized access to classified genetic mapping protocols in your lab." Rukia froze. She'd used her father's old codes to run deeper analyses than strictly permitted. "Dr. Zhao, I can explain. The patient's DNA structure." "Lock down all data immediately," Jin interrupted. "We have visitors from the Department of Evolutionary Security. They're very interested in your findings." The holographic displays flickered, and Rukia's access credentials suddenly blinked red. They were locking her out of her own research. With seconds to act, she pressed her thumb against the quantum crystal her father had given her years ago, transferring the core data before the systems went dark. The lab doors hissed open. 3 figures in charcoal suits entered, their badges displaying the distinctive double helix insignia of the DES. Behind them stood Dr. Zhao, looking apologetic. "Dr. Rukia Patel," the lead agent said, "we need to discuss your patient, Thalia Bennett, and your father's research." Rukia's hand closed around the crystal in her pocket. She thought of Thalia, probably at home right now, unaware that her simple genetic test had set something massive in motion. Whatever was happening, Rukia knew 2 things with certainty. Her father's disappearance and Thalia's mysterious DNA were connected, and the young woman needed to be warned before the DES reached her. As the agents approached her desk, Rukia's mind raced through possibilities. She had to find a way to protect both her patient and the discovery that might finally prove her father hadn't been crazy after all. Humanity wasn't ready for the truth hidden in Thalia's genes, but perhaps that truth had been waiting for humanity to catch up all along. Thalia Bennett stood at her apartment window, watching the Seattle rain create patterns on the glass while her world quietly unraveled. The message from Dr. Patel had arrived an hour ago, cryptic and urgent. "Don't go to your follow-up appointment. They're coming. Meet me at the old Cascade Observatory. Trust no one." Her fingers traced the slight ridges along her forearms, marks she'd always attributed to a childhood accident she couldn't remember. Now, in the gray afternoon light, they seemed to shimmer with an iridescent quality she'd never noticed before. Or perhaps she'd simply trained herself not to notice, just as she'd trained herself not to question why she could sometimes sense others' emotions, or why her night vision was inexplicably perfect. The sound of vehicles pulling up outside drew her attention. Black SUVs with tinted windows lined the street. Men in dark suits emerged, their movements precise and coordinated. The Department of Evolutionary Security. They'd found her already. Philia grabbed the go-bag she packed after receiving Rukia's warning. Her partner Nathan's voice echoed in her head from their call earlier. "Whatever's happening, Philia, be careful. Something about this feels bigger than just a genetic test." He was away at a conference in Tokyo, which was probably for the better. The less he knew right now, the safer he'd be. She slipped out through the building's service exit just as heavy footsteps echoed in the main stairwell. The rain provided cover as she merged into the crowd of umbrella-carrying pedestrians, her heart pounding with each step. The Cascade Observatory was on the outskirts of the city, abandoned years ago when light pollution made it obsolete, but its distinctive dome still stood as a landmark against the forested hills. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. "They're tracking your phone. Ditch it." Without hesitation, Philia dropped the device into a passing delivery drone's cargo box. Let them chase that across the city. The rain intensified as she caught a maglev train heading east. In the window's reflection, she studied her features, the slightly angular set of her cheekbones, the unusual gold flecks in her green eyes. How had she never questioned these little differences? Or had some part of her always known she wasn't entirely human? At the observatory, Dr. Patel waited in the shadow of the massive telescope dome. She wasn't alone. An elderly man stood beside her, his presence somehow familiar, though Philia was certain they'd never met. "Philia," Rukia said, "this is Dr. Nassim Patel, my father, and he knew your birth parents." The elderly scientist stepped forward, his eyes holding the same otherworldly glimmer that Philia sometimes caught in her own reflection. "Your real name," he said softly, "is Naira. You were born on a ship orbiting Jupiter's moon Europa, to a human mother and a father from a world circling Lyra's brightest star." Philia felt the truth of his words resonate in her DNA. The strange markers in her genetic test weren't anomalies. They were her heritage, a legacy written in the language of two species' combined genetic code. "The DEAs," Nassim continued, "they've known about the Lyrian presence for decades. Your father was part of a diplomatic mission, reaching out to select human scientists. We thought we could prepare humanity gradually, through controlled genetic studies. But there were those who saw any alien influence as a threat. When they tried to shut down our research," Rukia added, "your parents made a choice. They placed you with a human family, hoping you could live a normal life until you were ready to understand your true nature, until humanity was ready." The observatory's old equipment hummed to life around them. Nassim pressed a crystal similar to Rukia's into Philia's hand. "Your father left this for you. It contains everything. The history of the Lyrian people, the truth about the genetic seeding program, and most importantly, how to contact them." Through the dome's broken panels, the evening sky cleared. Philia could see Lyra rising, and for the first time, she felt the pull of that distant constellation in her bones. The crystal in her palm, pulsed with soft light, responding to her touch. "Why now?" she asked, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was learning. "Why tell me all this when I could have just lived a normal life?" "Because," Rukia said, checking a device that monitored DS communications, "they're getting close to finding others like you. More hybrid children, hidden around the world. You're not alone, Philia. And your people, both your peoples, need you to help bridge the gap before fear and prejudice tear apart everything your parents dreamed of." Outside, distant sirens grew closer. Their time was running out. Philia clutched the crystal, feeling its energy sync with her unique biology. She had a choice to make: run from her heritage or embrace it, hide from the truth, or help reveal it to a world that might not be ready. But as she looked at the crystal glowing in her palm, she realized the choice had already been made the moment she decided to take that genetic test. Some truths couldn't be hidden forever, and some destinies were written in the very stars themselves. The crystal network beneath the old observatory hummed with ancient power, awakening systems that had lain dormant for decades. Philia watched in awe as holographic star charts materialized around them, showing intricate patterns of connection between Earth and the Lyrian homeworld. "Your father helped design this facility," Nassim explained, his fingers dancing across controls that responded to his partial Lyrian DNA. "It's not just an observatory. It's a quantum communication hub, hidden in plain sight." Rukia monitored the perimeter sensors while simultaneously analyzing the data streaming from the activated systems. "DE's teams are establishing a containment perimeter. We have maybe 20 minutes before they breach the outer defenses." The crystal in Philia's hand pulsed stronger, synchronizing with the observatory's network. Images flooded her mind. A crystalline city orbiting a binary star, ships that sailed on solar winds, and beings that looked almost human except for their subtle iridescence and slightly angular features. Her people. Part of her people. "The Lyrians have been watching," Nassim said softly, "waiting for the first hybrid child to awaken to their heritage. You're not just a bridge between our species, Philia. You're the key to activating others like you." As if in response to his words, the crystal network projected a global map showing dozens of pulsing lights, other hybrids, their dormant Lyrian DNA responding to Philia's awakening. Each light represented someone like her, raised human but carrying the legacy of the stars in their genes. The observatory's quantum communications array suddenly sparked to life. A voice filled the chamber, speaking in harmonics that resonated with something deep in Philia's modified DNA. "The convergence has begun. We've been monitoring your situation, daughter of two worlds." A figure materialized in the center of the star chart, tall, elegant with skin that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Though the being looked mostly human, there was an otherworldly grace to their movements that marked them as distinctly Lyrian. "I am first speaker Lyra," the figure announced. "Your father served on my council before his death. He believed our peoples were ready to meet. Recent events suggest he may have been optimistic." Outside, the first sounds of DE's breach teams could be heard. Rukia's hands flew over the defense controls. "The outer barriers won't hold much longer. The Department of Evolutionary Security fears what they don't understand," Philia said, addressing the Lyrian projection. "But there must be others in our government willing to listen." "There are," First Speaker Lyra confirmed, "including some who have guessed the truth about their own heritage. Your awakening has triggered a cascade effect. Across your world, those carrying Lyrian genes are beginning to remember who they are." The global map pulsed brighter. In major cities across Earth, hybrid humans were experiencing their own awakening moments. The crystal network was connecting them all, creating a psychic web of shared consciousness and understanding. "But you were the first," Nassim added, "the one strong enough to seek the truth even when your instincts told you to stay hidden. Your genetic test didn't just reveal your heritage. It proved that humanity is ready to take its next evolutionary step." A massive explosion rocked the observatory's foundations. Through the security feeds, Philia could see DE's teams breaching the outer doors. But something was wrong. Their movements were hesitant, confused. Several agents had stopped completely, staring at their hands as if seeing them for the first time. "Some of them are awakening too," Rukia realized, checking their genetic signatures. "The hybrid genes are more widespread than anyone knew." First Speaker Lyra's projection smiled. "We seeded your world with our DNA centuries ago, with the blessing of certain human groups who understood our intention. Not to conquer or replace, but to help humanity reach its full potential. Each generation, more children are born carrying the combined strengths of both our species." The crystal network's glow intensified, spreading throughout the observatory. As it touched the approaching DE's agents, more of them stopped, their own hybrid DNA responding to the activation signal. The fear and aggression in their movements melted away, replaced by wonder as they began to understand their true nature. "This is what my parents died protecting," Thalia said, finally understanding. "Not just me, but the promise of what humanity and Lyrians could become together." "The time for hiding is over," first speaker Lyra declared. "Humanity stands at a crossroads. The question is no longer whether our peoples will meet, but how we will move forward together." Through her connection to the crystal network, Thalia could feel others like her awakening across the globe. Scientists, leaders, artists, people who had always felt slightly different, now understanding why. The convergence wasn't just a meeting of two species. It was the revelation of a plan centuries in the making, written in the very DNA of both their peoples. As the observatory's doors finally gave way, Thalia stood tall beside Ruqayya and Nassim. The DE's agents who entered were not the same ones who had started their breach. In their eyes shone the same awakened understanding that Thalia now felt. The time for secrets was ending. A new chapter in human evolution was about to begin. The world changed in waves. News of the Lyrian presence spread across global networks, accompanied by countless videos of hybrid humans demonstrating their awakened abilities. Some could perceive quantum fields, others could communicate telepathically, and a few, like Thalia, could do both and more. 1 month after the observatory incident, Thalia stood before the United Nations Security Council, her skin subtly luminescent under the chamber's lights. Beside her, Nathan squeezed her hand supportively. He'd returned from Tokyo to find his partner transformed but had chosen to stay, fascinated by humanity's expanding horizon, rather than fearful of it. The Lyrian genetic markers appear in roughly 2% of Earth's population, Thalia explained to the assembled leaders. Most carriers never knew their true heritage. The activation signal from the observatory simply woke something that was always there. On screens behind her, data streamed from research centers worldwide. Dr. Ruqayya Patel, now heading the newly formed Human Lyrian Genetic Research Institute, had been documenting the changes in awakened hybrids. The results defied conventional science while opening doors to entirely new fields of study. "We're not here to replace humanity," Thalia continued, her voice carrying the harmonic resonance characteristic of awakened hybrids. "We're proof that evolution isn't just about competition. It's about combination. Synthesis. Finding strength in unity rather than division." The Chinese representative leaned forward. "And these abilities, they pose no threat to non-hybrid humans." "On the contrary," Thalia responded, gesturing to Nathan. "The quantum fields we perceive actually strengthen our connections to all humans. We feel their emotions, understand their fears. It makes deception impossible and empathy inevitable." Reports from across the globe seemed to confirm this. Crime rates had plummeted in cities with awakened hybrids. Hospitals found that hybrid medical staff could diagnose conditions through quantum field perception. Schools discovered that hybrid teachers could connect with students on unprecedented levels. But not everyone embraced the change. Outside the UN, protesters carried signs warning of genetic pollution and alien invasion. Several nations had already passed laws requiring genetic testing and hybrid registration. Fear and wonder waged their ancient battle in humanity's heart. "What of the Lyrian homeworld?" the Russian delegate asked. "Why have they not shown themselves directly?" "They're waiting," Thalia explained, "for us to prove we can handle this revelation maturely." The observatory network was Phase 1, helping us understand that we're not alone. Phase 2 depends on how we treat those among us who are different. The chamber's quantum field sensors suddenly pulsed. First speaker Lyra's holographic form materialized beside Thalia, causing gasps and murmurs among the assembled leaders. It was the first time a Lyrian had appeared publicly before Earth's governments. "Your world stands at a familiar crossroads." The first speaker's harmonics resonated through the chamber. Every spacefaring civilization faces this moment. The discovery that they are not alone, that their genetic destiny is more complex than they imagined. How they respond determines their future among the stars. Screens around the chamber lit up with images from the Lyrian homeworld. Cities that blended organic and technological elements seamlessly, ships that traveled through quantum slipstreams, and beings of various species living and working together in harmony. This is what awaits Earth. First speaker Lyra continued, not through conquest or submission, but through the natural evolution already written in your genes. The hybrids are not an invasion force. They are the bridge builders, the proof that your species is ready to take its place in a larger community. Nathan stepped forward, his purely human perspective adding weight to his words. I've seen these changes firsthand. The awakened hybrids haven't lost their humanity. They've expanded it. They're showing us possibilities we never imagined. Felia felt the quantum field shift as understanding rippled through the chamber. The fear was still there, but curiosity and hope were stronger. Humanity had spent millennia looking to the stars, asking if they were alone. The answer had been within them all along, hidden in their very DNA. As the Security Council began their deliberations, Felia received a quantum message from Rukia. More hybrid children were awakening daily, each with unique combinations of human and Lyrian traits. The next generation would grow up knowing both sides of their heritage, bridging not just genetics but cultures, philosophies, and ways of being. The stars had always been humanity's destiny. They just hadn't expected to find that destiny already flowing through their veins, waiting to be awakened by a simple genetic test and the courage to embrace what made them different. 5 years after the awakening, the old Cascade Observatory had transformed into Earth's first quantum integration center. Its crystalline spires now reached toward the stars that had called to Thalia so long ago, serving as a beacon for both hybrid and human children learning to understand their shared future. Felia walked through the meditation gardens, where iridescent flowers bred from combined Earth and Lyrian botanics bloomed year-round. Students of all ages practiced focusing their abilities, human children learning to sense the quantum fields that their hybrid classmates perceived naturally, young hybrids discovering new ways to bridge both aspects of their heritage. The latest integration statistics are encouraging, Rukia said, falling into step beside her. The geneticist had aged little in the past 5 years, another gift of her partial Lyrian heritage. 87% of identified hybrids have successfully adapted to their awakened abilities, and human acceptance rates continue to climb. They reached the observatory's central chamber, now a bustling hub of interstellar communication. Nassim worked with a team of human and hybrid scientists, coordinating with Lyrian researchers across the galaxy. The quantum network that had once connected only hybrids now extended to all of humanity, thanks to breakthroughs in neural interface technology. The first deep space expedition leaves next week, Felia noted, watching the preparations on the main display. The ship, christened Unity, represented the first true collaboration between human and Lyrian engineering. Its crew included both species, along with hybrids to facilitate communication and navigation through quantum space. Nathan appeared from the research wing, where he led efforts to adapt Lyrian medical techniques for human physiology. The genetic therapy trials are showing promise, he reported. We might soon be able to offer limited quantum sensitivity to any human who chooses it. Not full hybrid abilities, but enough to participate in the quantum network. Choice is crucial, Felia reminded them. It had been her one non-negotiable condition when helping establish the integration protocols. No one, human or hybrid, would be forced to change. Evolution worked best when it flowed naturally, guided by wisdom and acceptance rather than fear or mandate. A shimmer in the quantum field announced first speaker Lyra's arrival. The Lyrian leader had become a regular visitor to Earth, working closely with human governments to ease the transition into galactic society. The Council has approved the next phase, they announced. Earth will receive its first permanent Lyrian embassy next month. But more significant news followed. We've also detected hybrid markers in transmissions from 3 other developing civilizations. They're approaching their own awakening moments. The Council believes you would be the ideal ambassador to help guide them through the transition. Thalia felt the weight of the opportunity. 5 years ago, she'd been a young woman simply seeking answers about her health. Now she stood at the crossroads of multiple civilizations' futures. Her journey from confusion to understanding could light the way for others. It won't be easy, Rukia cautioned. Each species will face their own unique challenges. Their hybrid children will have different abilities, different needs. But that's the beauty of it, Nathan added. Every new combination brings fresh perspectives, new possibilities. Look at what the human Lyrian synthesis has already achieved. He gestured to the garden visible through the chamber's crystal walls. Human children played alongside their hybrid friends, their games incorporating both physical activity and quantum field manipulation. They were growing up in a world where difference was celebrated rather than feared, where evolution meant addition rather than replacement. I'll do it, Thalia decided, but not alone. She looked at her found family, Rukia with her scientific brilliance, Nathan with his boundless compassion, Nassim with his deep wisdom, and all the others who had helped transform a moment of crisis into an opportunity for growth. Through the quantum network, she sensed similar scenes playing out across Earth. In schools, laboratories, and homes, humans and hybrids were learning from each other, growing together. The genetic test that had revealed her true nature had sparked not just a personal awakening, but a planetary one. First speaker Lyra smiled, their form shimmering with approval. Then let us prepare. The stars await, and they have so many stories yet to tell. As Thalia looked up through the observatory's crystal dome, she saw the night sky differently than she had 5 years ago. The stars were no longer distant points of light, but bridges waiting to be crossed, connections waiting to be made. Humanity's next great adventure was beginning, guided by the very thing that made them unique: their ability to adapt, to change, to combine the best of multiple worlds into something entirely new. The simple genetic test that had started it all now sat in a museum display, a reminder that the biggest discoveries often come from asking the simplest questions. Who am I? Where do I come from? And most importantly, what might we become together?